All right, everybody, welcome back to the Empire Self Podcast. I am so absolutely thrilled to be back here live from LA. All right. It took a couple of months for me to get all situated down here in LA, and I've got to say, I'm still not very situated. I'm sitting right now inside of an Airbnb, and I still don't know where I'm going to be next month. And I actually kind of like this style of living. I don't know what's going to go on next. And when I do know what's going on next, I kind of feel a little bit bored. So it's kind of fun. And I think that's why I like being an entrepreneur so much. And I think that's why I like doing multimedia broadcasts. I just have no idea where things are going. All I do know is that if I focus in on being kind and confident and loving, then things tend to work out for me. And so that's what my focus has been this past couple of years. And as you know, things have just been wild. If you've been following along, you can go check out my blog on Substack. I just wrote an article about how I found myself in some crazy situations just following my heart. As you know, if you've followed along Empire Self Podcast for any number of years or any number of months, I am all about following that bliss. That bliss, y'all, led me out of addiction, out of homelessness, out of being 230 pounds and eating McDonald's burgers as snacks to becoming an Ironman triathlete. That bliss led me out of North Carolina during COVID down to South Florida, where I would end up meeting Tim Quinn and I would start Halo 42 business, Halo 42 skincare line. I never saw myself doing this, but in following my bliss, I have fallen into doors that have opened up a whole world of possibility and experience that I just are way beyond my wildest dreams, right? And when I follow my bliss every single time, it seems like I don't understand what's going on until after it happens. Now, I'm not sure if that's like just my personality or if that's like my star family, if that's like who I'm just built to be. Now, I've heard of a difference between like manifestors and projectors, and I actually fall under the line of a projector. And a projector, we're not supposed to really know exactly where we're going. Ugh, I know it's kind of frustrating and anxiety provoking. We're not supposed to know where we're going, but we end up finding out where we're going if we just follow our bliss. But I will have to add this. It's not only about following your bliss, it's also about staying open, right? And it's also about letting go of attachment. So letting go of like the way that I feel, the attachment, the expectation of the way that I feel like my life should head. I've got to let that go. If I don't let that go, then I'll never be able to step into my dreams. And out here in LA, I had no idea really what was going to happen or, where I was going, but I knew that I had to come out here. I knew that I had to come out here because down in South Florida, where my current bliss was leading me, it wasn't available, right? It seemed like the people that I was meeting and everything, I kept running up against some sort of abrasion. I kept running up against some sort of tension, right? I wasn't finding the collaboration that I needed to build this podcast. The inspiration just stopped coming. The creativity. I was like, man, I've got to get out to a place where I can be more creative. At that same time, guys, as if you're following along my blogs and my writing, I also just wrote a long blog article about the whole past summer. So as you all know, there was a lot of choices that I made over this whole past summer that really shocked myself and shocked a lot of people in my family, shocked a lot of you guys probably. And sure enough, it really, really shocked me. I had no idea really where I was going and what I was doing, but I knew something. And I knew that, God builds all of us. And not only does he build all of us, but he causes us to go through certain things, right? He causes us to go through certain things that we may not understand. And some of those things are all the way back in childhood, right? Like the trauma that I faced. God put that stuff in my life and he built me to be able to go through that for some sort of reason. Now, as a projector, I guess I'll never really understand that reason. But as I look back, I start to see, oh, wait, that's like an essential key to the puzzle, right? To the puzzle of my life. And it ends up helping me step upon the lily pad, right, through the swamp of my life. And if I'm not careful, then I can take a step on one of these lily pads and I can end up getting stuck in the mire. And getting stuck in the mire is definitely not following the bliss, right? So like taking the step down to South Florida, that was me following my bliss. But if I stayed down in South Florida based off of comfort, I would stay on that lily pad and that lily pad would start to eventually sink. And I would find myself in the same place that I was many, many years ago. Depression, suicide, addiction. In fact, all that stuff was beginning to crop up for me. And when all that stuff starts to crop up for me, I know it's time to make a move. And so there was a whole bunch of things that had been going on that past year, right? I had gone into the church and I had changed the Empire Self podcast into the Seeds of Change podcast. And I had dived so deeply into the church that I was thinking that I was going to become some sort of YouTube pastor or just a pastor in general. And then throughout that season, I started to hate aspects about myself, right? I started to hate aspects about myself. I mean, I was dating a woman, so I kind of believed that, well, I must not be gay anymore. So therefore, I fit into this perfect Christian box, the Christian box that I always wanted to fit into. Oh man, how badly I desired to just be like other people my entire life. How badly, since I was a little kid, I just desired to be like everybody else my entire life. But as I start to do that, as I start to fit in, yes, people around me started to, really reflect the approval. And many of these people I cared so deeply about, like my family. I craved that approval my entire life. And so I was so very excited that that approval was coming into my life. But at the same time, I was having to start to hate aspects of myself. And when I fit myself into some sort of box, that means parts of me are getting cut off, right? Parts of me are getting cut off that they may be related to my trauma, but there's still parts of me. There's still parts of you, right? There's still parts of us as a child that will always be there. And they don't need to be exercised. They don't need to be destroyed. Instead, I need to find a way to use those to create light in my life, right? All the sexual trauma, all the addiction, how can I use this stuff to create light in my life? There's some reason why God put me through all of this stuff. God would not have allowed me to be molested had he not have some sort of plan in my life. Now, when I was in the church, I did recognize this. I read in the Bible that God created some people violent so that they would actually end up killing or creating wars. Now, why is that? Why is that? And how, as a Christian, how, as a man of God, can I believe that? How can I have such deep faith that I can absolutely just let go of every way that I expect life to be and want it to be? How can I just let go of that and watch it happen? Well, I'll tell you, you got to be able to be willing. You got to be able to be willing to take the jump. You got to be able to be willing to take the dive. And I knew that if I was willing to take the leap, I could do great things. And I don't know always where those leaps are going to take me, right? But every single time that I take the leap, every single time I take the leap out of bed, since I started getting up out of bed, I would start to get up and I would say, I don't know what this day is going to hold, but I know one thing. I'm not going to sit here in my pain, in my fear, in my self-pity, and just sit here and watch the day go past me. I'm not going to sit here in my self-disgust and watch the day just go on, because I know where that's leading me. And that always was leading me into suicidal ideation space, right? And ever since I've been out of addiction, I don't really fall into a place of, craving that booze or craving that, drug. Instead, I start to crave something different. I start to crave the same oblivion. It's actually the same oblivion that I used to crave when I would use heroin. And I remember sticking my needle in my arm and I would put on like Kurt Cobain. I would like to listen to some Nirvana or some Blind Melon. Anybody who had died from heroin was like, I would connect with that music when I put it on, when I put it in my veins, and I would kind of hope maybe this is my time. Or I would say, I'm going to join y'all in this oblivion, right? And if I wake up, then I wake up. And so as I experience those same types of feeling, that I'm craving this oblivion, that I'm craving this detachment, that I'm craving, disappearing, I start to go, I need to make some moves. I need to make some moves. I don't know what those moves are, but I need to make some moves. And so if I don't make those moves, I end up on that lily pad. I end up stuck. I end up getting deeper and deeper. And I know it's just a matter of time that I will find myself either back in addiction or back in a place of like just really not being able to control the suicidal thoughts. And that is just not a great place for me to live. So I took the jump. And the reason why I took the jump out to LA, y'all, is I've actually had a little part of me inside that for my entire life has always wanted to move out here. And so I like to cherish all the different little dreams that I have, just like I like to cherish all the different little traumas that I have. And I like to find out how I can turn those into gold. And so everything just bubbled up at the perfect timing. And so I went and I went to go get out of the church because I was unhappy in the church. So I went to go get out of the church, and I left the church and I went to go tell my parents about this, right? And my parents, they were not very excited about this move that I was doing to get out of the church. And in doing so, as you can read in my article over on Substack, is that there were some decisions that they made that really triggered me. They triggered me back to my childhood, where I didn't feel like I was loved. I didn't feel like I had the approval, and I just completely detached from my body. I completely detached from who I was and everything. My trauma just came back full throttle. It came back full throttle, and I ended up finding myself doing things that I was not proud of, right? I was like, man, how am I headed into this space? But I knew it was in my bliss somehow, right? Because I had ended up in this trauma and I needed to take action. And so what I did is I took my little cross and I flipped it upside down. And I started to do everything the exact opposite. I found myself in a very rebellious state. Yes, but it was my bliss, right? And in that bliss, I ended up developing a new energy, an energy that allowed me to take steps in my life that I was not otherwise willing to take. And so once I connected with that bliss, I was able to start making these types of moves. And so making this move out to LA was just absolutely tremendous. But I had to connect deeper and deeper with myself because I noticed that I had detached from my body. Now, the whole purpose of this podcast, Empire Self, was in fact because I started to learn how to tap deeper into myself. And by tapping deeper into myself, by creating an empire of myself where I used to walk around life like I was in the desert and like I didn't have anything, I didn't have anybody, no community, no brotherhood, no unity. I walked around in this place of just dismal self-disgust, and I had no idea where life was taking me. And when I finally got out of my addictions and found myself doing Ironman triathlon, I recognized the solution there was actually tapping deeper into myself. I began to treat my body like a temple. I truly did. I treated my body like a temple. I would go into my temple when I would become anxious. I didn't seek outside of myself for those solutions. I found them all deep within. And so as I was starting to go through this pattern again, where I had detached from my body and I started to experience suicidal ideation, I started to tap deeper in. But here's the thing, I couldn't go back into triathlon. I tried it, but I couldn't do it because my heart was having problems from when I was doing triathlon so much that it had become another sort of addiction. I had become stuck on another lily pad in my life, right? And as I was trying to get back into triathlon, I started to become so sad that I wasn't going to be able to do triathlon. So what was I going to do to be able to tap into myself? And so I went into sensual embodiment. I began to touch myself with love. I began to much like I did with fitness, where I would be running and I would feel my breath, and inside my head I would say, "You are divine. You are a miracle." I would call myself a machine, like as strong as a machine, right? And then I would just fuel that machine, right? And I would just trug along, but that connection with myself ends up being able to relieve me out of my trauma and ends up being able to help me step into my power. And so this sensual embodiment made a lot of sense to me. Again, I had no idea the purpose or where it was going, but I knew that I had to do it. And so I began to experience myself on a whole new level. And you can read or listen to some of the past podcasts and blogs about this, but I started to practice like edging, right? Where you masturbate, but you don't masturbate for the end. You don't masturbate for the cum shot, for the orgasm. Instead, you masturbate for the experience. And I found this to be an utterly amazing experience because in doing so, you start to learn how to hold back. You start to learn how life isn't about the ending. Life isn't about the finish line. Life is about the race, man. Life is about the endurance. But not only that, I started to recognize that because life isn't about the ending, it's about sharing oneself with another. So I started to recognize that in sex and even in masturbation, it's not about this, even how good it feels. Instead, it's about how deeply it helps me to connect with myself. And if I'm with another partner, how deeply it allows me to connect with that person. This is a concept that I actually did not understand. It's a concept that I never gained from triathlon. And so I found myself in this place and I go, wow, I'm really connecting this other part of me that I feel like is like the key to my connection with love and intimacy and my masculinity on a whole nother level. I became a different man through this. I found that through edging, I actually was able to bring my testosterone levels back. Right? I had to supplement testosterone for a couple of months because my testosterone levels after endurance training for Ironman were so low. And but through edging, I was able to increase my testosterone levels back to a normal level. So I got off my testosterone because I was having these dreams of like some sort of black tar seeping out of the injection site where I was injecting. And once I started having those dreams, I go, I got to get off this stuff. I don't know what it's doing, but I got to get off this stuff. Not to mention, I recognized that my energy levels were fake. Right? So I'd be in the gym and I'd be working out and I'd be like, oh, I'm just not feeling it today. I need more testosterone. That was not a thought that I had ever had before taking testosterone. And so I go, man, I've got to find a way that I can, tap into this without. And luckily I had just stumbled through my bliss into this new place of sensual embodiment whereby I was actually increasing my testosterone without even knowing it, without even trying it. As I started to research what I was doing, I go, oh my gosh, I think I just found some sort of key. Because while I did that, I would be stronger in the gym. I would have more energy, and it wasn't energy related to some sort of external thing coming in. It was energy related to my own internal system. And so I became a huge advocate for this. And I started to go, you know what? I'm going to start a whole coaching program. I'm going to start, really promulgating this, and I'm going to start teaching people how to do this. So that's when I started to open up my OnlyFans and everything like that. And I started to have a lot of fun with it. And then I'm a slippery slope little addict. I'm an extremist. And so I took that into a whole nother deeper level, right? And that is one of the things that I have to caution everybody about when it comes to any sort of what I call sex magic, right? Anytime we're using our sexual being to kind of elevate ourselves or to learn more about ourselves, we have to recognize that this is a very temperamental system. This temperamental system is attached to our mind, body, and our spirit at a whole nother level. And so I highly caution people about this because I've also heard of people who can't stop once they start. And so as I started to look into the world of edging and the people doing it, there's a lot of people out there who become just addicted to masturbation. And I started to get worried that I was going to head in that same sort of spiral. And so at that point I go, well, I know how to get rid of addiction, and that's actually to give back, and that's actually to help other people, and that's actually to share about it. And so that's why I started sharing about it, doing it on my OnlyFans, and I started to have a lot of fun with it. I really thought that I was onto something there, but like I said, it is a slippery slope, and mine just turned into me headed into pornography, basically. And that's not where I saw myself. That's not where I saw myself. That's not what I wanted to really do. And so as I started to see myself in that place, then I started to develop more heart conditions. Like I was going through these anxiety attacks that would bubble up inside, and I would be like, holy cow, I think I'm going to have a heart attack. Like I need to go check into the hospital. And this is the first time in my life I was having those. I'm 38 years old now, and I was getting really concerned that I was actually going to have a heart attack. And so I began to go, you know what? Something's up. My body is telling me something. I know for a fact, I read this book called The Body Keeps the Score. And you guys, you gotta check this book out if you have any sort of trauma. The body keeps the score. So I know I really know that my body knows exactly what it needs all the time, right? If I can just listen to it, I know what it needs to traverse through this life at its maximum potential. And I've seen myself during Ironman triathlon be running down the road and be like, I need an orange. And I will not eat the orange because I'm like, wow, that's weird. Why would I need an orange? I've never eaten an orange before on an Ironman. And I'll be running, then I'll just try some goos. I'll try what I think is going to work. I'm attached to this idea, right? This is where I'm supposed to be. This is who I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to eat this goo. But yet my body's telling me that I'm supposed to be doing something different. And then once I finally stop at an aid station and eat the orange, I develop a brand new sense of confidence, a brand new sense of strength. And so I know that my body keeps the score. And so as I start to experience these symptoms, my mind had not caught up with me yet. My body was just starting to, when I would do these pornographic videos, collaborations with other people, I would develop these heartaches. And I was like, man, my body's telling me something. I got to figure this out. And then my mind started to catch up to me, because the thing about me, and same within the Ironman, just like with the orange, right? I just run right by the orange and I'm just like, I'm going to have the goo. So I kept on running. I was like, you know what? I know that I need to have the orange, but I'm just going to keep on running, do these collabs, start going deeper and deeper into the pornographic realm. And it's kind of good that I did, really, because otherwise I don't know if I would have made the move out to LA, because I was down in Florida and I was like, there's nobody here to collab with, right? But out in LA, I knew that there were creators who create pornographic material. I knew that this was a place where I could be accepted for that too, where I could actually walk down the street and say, yeah, I do porn. And people would be like, oh, that's cool, right? But that wasn't really the case, the general consensus down in Florida. So it all just kind of like bubbled up at just the right time. But here's the thing, I started to experience those, and then my mind caught up to me. My spirit, I have no idea where it was at the time. It's just always hanging out with God with a big old smile. But my body and my mind were starting to catch up to each other. My mind started to experience the suicidal ideation. And so when I moved out here, I didn't have too many suicidal ideations for a while, right? I was on another cloud. I was like, "Woo, this is awesome, man." Like a super liberal community. They accept me doing this, they accept me doing that. I could do whatever I want. But not only that, I felt like it was like a land of manifestation. When I would come out here, I would think about something and it would happen. I would think about meeting somebody and it would happen. And I was just like, man, it seems like every dream that I have is coming true. And so I would think about making a collaboration. And sure enough, I would have this like wonderful man come over and give me a ride of my life. And then I would have 8,000 new followers on my Twitter and on my OnlyFans. I started making money. I started getting all the things that I was thinking that that would satisfy me, that would give me the purpose, right? But as I started to experience this, my mind started to catch up to me, and I did start to experience the suicidal ideation. And I also started to see that out in my life, I started to see there's a lot of people who live this way, right? And I would meet them, and I would be like, they're like a window into my future, where if I keep living this way, this is where I'm going to end up. This is who I'm going to be like. And there were very few people in this industry that I would hang out with, and I would be like, oh yeah, this is exactly who I want to be like. There were some people who I thought maybe, and then I would hang out with them and I'd be like, man, there's just like something missing. And I'm not saying they were bad people. There were some really wonderful, great people that I was meeting along the way, but it just like wasn't aligned with who I wanted to be. And at the same time, I was starting to meet other people where I was like, oh, this is more like what I want to be like. And when I would hang out with them, I was just, I'm a big advocate for, I love the word juxtaposition, like doing a couple of different things, living a couple different ways to juxtapose. That's when you put two things next to each other and you compare them and juxtapose the different lifestyles. And so I'd hang out with these different people and I would just see how I felt, how my body felt, how my mind felt. And I noticed that when I hung out with the right people, I didn't go into these anxiety and heart attacks type feeling. In fact, there was one point here where I went into an anaphylactic shock after hanging out with a man who was so much like the person that I saw myself as, like the porn embodiment, exercise guy. I was like kind of in love with him, but my body wouldn't let me give myself to him. And I just find it so fascinating and so interesting. Now, his path is a glorious path. I think this man is awesome. But my path, my star path, guys, this isn't about judgment. This isn't about what's right or wrong. Those people serve a certain purpose on this earth, like a great one too. But I was like, my star, it's almost like as I'm flying through this thing called life, right? As I'm flying through, traversing through this life, headed towards from the beginning to the end, if I get off track, it's almost just like turbulence, right? It's like, and so as I start to experience this turbulence, and I didn't experience it in other paths, I was like, it's just pretty clear which path I need to take. And so at that point, I decided that it was probably time to start considering another path. And at the very same time is when I started to have these wild and crazy dreams. I had these dreams, this one dream, I saw the tree of life. Like I didn't really know it was the tree of life. I was in this like summer camp type situation, and I was walking around and I was trying to explore this place, and I saw there was like this huge mountain, but it was like a tree mountain. And it was like clearly the beginning of the earth type situation or something, but it was a tree and it was a mountain at the same time, and it was like connected to each other, and this tree had these big old like holes in it, and it looked like it was breathing like a big old sponge. It was such a weird looking thing, and I tried to get up to the top of it. And then the next dream that I had, I was in this huge sexual orgy, barbaric, like mysterious land and it was filled with fear, and we were like flesh eating and having sex in the mud, and everything was like just chaotic and wild. And we were all going to go to a Sublime concert. And like, I started, I know, a Sublime concert, so funny. But I was headed to this Sublime concert, and then I just picked up my guitar and I started playing praise and worship. And then around me, all the fear dissipated. All the fear dissipated. And then the people who were eating my flesh, who I was eating their flesh, who we were consuming each other and having sex with each other, those people turned around and they started singing praise and worship with me. And in that moment, I knew that my life was with Christ. My spirit finally caught up to my mind and my body, and I knew where I was and who I was supposed to be. And I looked around me and I saw community and I saw unity, and I saw coming out of my spirit and out of my body was service. I saw that I was sacrificing the consumption for the experience of community and brotherhood. And I woke from that dream, and I don't think I'll ever fall back into that dream. I journaled the next morning, and I was just writing about the things that I value most in life. I value sex. I value connection with another man. I value feeling like I'm helping him to achieve relaxation, empowerment. I value that I feel valued in that moment. Sex is an illusion towards community, unity, and service. And as I journaled about these things, I saw my life. It was all about sex. And I was using sex as a way to connect with myself, to connect with others, and to be of service. But it was an illusion. It wasn't real. Because as I looked around in my life, I didn't have three things. I was here in LA and I had no community. I didn't have any brotherhood. I didn't have any service. So although I was feeling like I was giving, that I wasn't. And there, my mind started to come back up with those suicidal thoughts. And I recognized that what I had just written down was the creed to Alcoholics Anonymous. And that creed is very much so aligned with the mind, body, spirit, the Father, Son, the Holy Ghost, earth, wind, and fire. It's all the same thing, different words. And then in that moment, all my judgment of all religions fell by my side. From the magic that I had been doing, like it's the sex, occult magic of Aleister Crowley, to the, Christian worship that I had been doing the year prior. All of it just collided together. I recognized that no part of me had to be separate. It could all be unified. I could experience all of life inside of this little triangle of unity, service, and community. I could experience the greatest sex ever staying inside of this. I could experience the greatest relationships ever staying inside of community, service, unity. I could also focus better if I stayed within community, service, and brotherhood. I noticed myself, I went to two different gyms. One gym was the Equinox and one gym was called John Reed Fitness. At John Reed Fitness, I would go in and the general feeling there is about sex, and it's about, connecting with other people in that way. And like I would watch as my eyes would go straight into somebody's crotch and theirs would go straight into mine. And instantly we would start connecting, right? But then afterwards, we would just kind of disappear from each other, empty and wanting maybe more. And I might spend all day trying to get more of that. And then I would notice other connections that I was making out here that weren't rooted in that. And they would lead, like it led me into my first movie. I ended up filming a movie. So I ran into this guy and I was like hot for him. He was hot. And he goes, I stopped walking around and having sex out here. And I was like, wow, that's weird. Why are you in West Hollywood not having sex with everybody? Like everybody wants to have sex. It's awesome. And I found it really peculiar. This guy is like a huge Marilyn Manson fan, like all into horror films and stuff like that. And I figured he would be all about sex. And he was hot. And I was like, man, I hope he becomes my boyfriend. But instead, we ended up creating a movie together. He ended up putting me in his movie. And I was just like, holy cow, sex is such a royal illusion for otherwise creation. Like I could be creating lasting community and unity and service with these people rather than just a quick cum shot. Boom. And it all came back. Like this is why I was doing the edging in the first place, because it's not about the orgasm. It's about the community. It's about the service. It's about the unity. If I stay focused on those things, then I also don't want more and more and more. I'm not an addict anymore. I don't want more and more and more. I'm not trying to fill some sort of void that's not full. Instead, I'm seeking building community, unity, and service. I'm building brotherhood around me. I'm building relationships that can last a lifetime. I'm building relationships that can turn into great businesses. I'm building relationships that can turn into more movies. And so I highly encourage you guys to look into your life in ways where you've lost sense of the empire. The empire of life, the empire of self is when you're walking around in a desert and you look out and you find a place of community, service, and unity. An empire is a place of safety. An empire is a place that when you walk in, you're going to find other people like you. You're going to find people who accept you. You're going to walk in there and you're going to find food. You're going to find all the nourishment that you need. If your empire of self is not built like this, then what is it? What's missing? Focus in. Focus in on the triangle of community, service, and unity. Next time you take your eyes down on somebody's eyes level and you start looking at their crotch or you start looking at their boobs or their butt, I want you to focus in and say, is this promoting community, service, and unity? If it's not, put your head back into the triangle. Put your head back into the triangle. Yeah, it's the AA triangle, whatever. It's also the Christian triangle. It's also the Kabbalistic triangle. It's all of them, guys. Just focus back in community, service, and unity. And then as you do that, your mind will come out of what I like to call the gutter. The mind will come out of the gutter and it will recognize what you can really do with this person. You can do so much more with them. And watch. When you do this, people are but our mirrors, like I mentioned earlier. There are our mirrors and our windows, and we can look at them as a window towards our future. We can also look at them as a mirror back to ourselves. And if I go to somebody who's looking at my crotch and looking down at me and wants sex from me, but inside of my focus, I'm community, service, and brotherhood, I can rescue them from their darkness as well. I can help elevate them. They may be a person who's wondering about their next business move, but if I go straight into sucking their dick, their next business move is going to be missed, right? Their next business opportunity with me is going to be mixed. Their next creative exploration, their next movie is going to be missed. And I'm going to be missing a whole bunch along the way too. In fact, I'm going to find myself in that desert where I'm always hungry. I'm always thirsty Because what happened was I consumed my entire empire. I consumed it rather than being there, present, and experiencing it. And experiencing the community, service, and unity. So now that's my focus. If something I'm doing for the day doesn't involve community, service, and unity, then what's the point? Here's the thing that I've noticed. If it does involve community, service, and unity, I'm going to be able to experience everything outside of it as well. I'm still going to be able to consume. In fact, God's just going to provide the things for me to consume. And not only that, he's going to provide the things in a much better and bigger way than I ever could have imagined. But if I keep trying to consume what I'm attached to thinking that I need, the sex or the drugs or whatever it is, food, if I'm attached to that, then I'll be stuck on my lily pad, y'all. I'll be stuck in my desert. The walls of my empire will start to crack and crumble and fall, and I'll find myself in the depressed, suicidal place that I so badly don't want to be in the rest of my life. I'm 38 years old and I'm done with it. I'm done with it. And I hope you are too. And maybe your place doesn't get all the way down into some deep, dismal spot of suicidal ideation and heroin addiction. Maybe it takes you in just like a little place, but it's a little place of less than. And you deserve all of it. You deserve all of life to be amazing. And so do I. We are all divine. We're stars, man. We're all stars. So go inside yourself right now. Recognize that you have an empire within. Connect with your body, even if it's through edging, but do it through love. Do it through kindness. Open your mind and don't go after the consumption and the end, man. It's about experiencing one another. It's about experiencing yourself. Love yourself. Do your beauty routine and change your perspective, right? It's not about changing who you are. It's about connecting deeper to who you are. By connecting deeper and showing ourselves more and more self-love, we're able to connect deeper and deeper with other people. You can't love other people without loving yourself. So get out there today, everybody, and let my story be a testimony to you to love yourself above and beyond. Follow your bliss. Follow your bliss wherever it leads you. But always have faith that wherever it leads you is within God's plan. And if you don't like the word God, that's fine with me. I've been through a lot of times where I've flipped my cross over and I wouldn't use the word God. I wouldn't say Jesus Christ, right? And that's fine. Be open to that. Let yourself do that for a season if you have to. But just have faith that the next step that you're taking is taking you in the right direction towards your empire. You're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. All you got to do is be kind. Make sure you smile. If you got to fake it till you make it, fake it till you make it. But don't go out there and be angry at other people, right? Because they're all in their own little desert and weird places too. The trick is to always be kind and always try to be loving, even if you don't believe in God, right? And if you can't say God, that's fine. And Alcoholics Anonymous, the book is all about God, right? But a lot of people, they're not able to see it. Now, for myself, I was never able to get sober until I was finally able to forgive the church. And once I was able to forgive, I was able to start using the word God in my life, although it wasn't the Christian God. It's become the Christian God over and over again in my life. But, you know, the times that I stray away from it, I just got to let it go because my mind has not caught up with it. My spirit somehow knows. My body, I don't know what it's doing all the time. My spirit always knows, but my mind might not. My mind might not be able to make the right words. My mind might not be able to do the worship service. My mind might not be able to take me into church because of my traumas and whatever. But until I was able to forgive myself and forgive the church for those types of things, I was always still in that constant state of addiction, constant state of resent, constant state of hate, right? And as long as I'm in that in any sort of way, resenting politicians, Boom. Yeah. Resenting politicians, resenting the church, resentment in any sort of way, any sort of attachment to the way that I think things have to be rather than just the beautiful flow, the beautiful stream of life, right? Anytime that I'm in that place, I'm further in my desert and I'm starting to experience life like a desert. And then for me, it's dismal. I don't want to be out there. I would rather be in the empire of self where there's hope, where there's a future, where I'm a light to other people, where there's community, service, and unity. So get out there today, guys. Thanks for hopping on. This is a nice long session, but it's from my heart to yours. I love you all very, very much, even the ones that I don't know. I love you guys. Hope to see you around. And here's to a brighter future for us all every single day. No matter what choice we make, if we stay kind, it'll come back around. It'll all come back around. Stay kind. Keep the faith. Your faith. There's not the faith, just your faith inside of your empire of self, and build yourself into the man, woman, or person that you want to be. Because somewhere deep inside of you, at the very dawn of time, God created you to want to be a certain person for a certain reason. He gave you those passions. So go out there. Be passionate for what's bleeding out of you right now. And be passionate for your next breath. All right. I'm Mark Turnipseed. And if you like this, if you liked this Empire Self podcast, then make sure you follow along, hit like, hit subscribe, come on over to the Substack, go to markaturnipseed.com, share it with your friends, share it with your family, and let's spread some light and love, and let's become and build the empire of potential that you have in your life. I love you all very much, and I will talk to you later. Bye.